fastest finishers could be the local lad, or relative local, and that's Luis Leon Sanchez, who's infiltrated the move of the day. It was in the early break yesterday, so looking at these early moves, again, no threat overall. He's lying way down the classification at 20 minutes and 28 seconds, but he does have a teammate there, and obviously their objective today, and that's in Omar Frail, and he's defending his lead in the Meta Volontes jersey, and has snaffled up the points on the last one, and there still are 2 more Meta Volontes sprints. So if he snaffles up those today, he's going to be, going to win that overall, because obviously there's no points on offer in the time trials tomorrow. So a very, very good thing for Casuarol to have pulled off, especially in the absence of anybody up there in overall contention. Their best rider at 17.5 minutes.
There you go. So Freire went for it yesterday, pinged off the front and just picked up the some minor points that remained, and he's done a good job today, being in the break and being allowed to nose through those intermediate sprints, because it's of no consequence to those who are also in the break. So they give him the honour. Wearer of the jersey, after you, sir.
Definitely, but again, it's not easy to get in these breaks. They are very, very hard fought. Remember, this is a World Tour race with World Tour points on offer, and these breaks don't just occur. It would be good sometimes to actually see a race from the very start, to see the amount of attacking that goes on to actually get these breaks going in the first place, because the bunch were together for a good 20 or 30 kilometres, and I believe it was very, very active, but eventually this group has gone clear, but again with no threats overall. That's why it's been allowed to go away, but not too much, still hovering around 1.5 minutes, so could be brought back if needed. But I don't think Consul is going to be too worried. They're just going to be happy with the current status quo.
Nelson Philippe Oliveira is up there as well for Lampre Merida. Damiano Cunego's been refinding his form of late. He's not going to have the chance to strut his stuff today, unfortunately, but there is a Category 1 climb. Yesterday we saw both of the main feature climbs of the day, but approached from different directions, and today it's the easier routes.
Yeah, the Alto de Achua still is the hardest climb of the day, and that's the penultimate climb, which they'll be seeing in the next few kilometres. 6.6 k's in length, with an average gradient of 6.59%. Nothing too brutal, but it does kick up at the top with sections of just over 8% just at the summit. So that's going to prove a test. And will we see that breakaway on the climb together, or will they start attacking each other? At the moment, there's clearly an accord within this group. They're working very, very well. I can't see anybody sitting on the back and resting. So at the moment, they have got the strength in numbers, and with 16 men in the move, you're on the front for 20-30 seconds and you rest. There's lots of periods of rest, so they're working very, very smoothly as a group, and nobody's sitting on just yet.
No, Xabi Zandio is the man from Sky who's just rolled off the front, incidentally. They will peak at 54 kilometres, so they're 1,200 metres now, just from getting a bit of respite, and then it's a long downhill run. We will be climbing it again in around, just working it out, 37 kilometres to go marker. So once they get over this, they're going to have 18 of respite, and because of the talent that's here, they will stay away for quite a while. And I think you're right. I think it's going to be the Alto de Achua that's the big shootout zone. They peak that at 25 kilometres to go, but they start climbing it with 34 to go. So this is the first of a couple of sequences. There is a climb in between, incidentally, so it's quite a lumpy day.
It certainly is. Not much respite at all, but no hilltop finish. We finished the final climb at 151.8, and there's a steep drop in before a gradual downhill run into a very fast finish, but not an overly technical one on this occasion.
Yeah, luckily. They will peak the last climb with 8.2 to go, so be pretty swift from that point onwards.
Definitely, and I think the riders will be looking at that. They'll know the parcours. They'll have had a look at the road book this morning, and most of the riders will actually normally be carrying a little parcours sheet in their pocket, a laminated one, or sometimes put it on their stems there, and they'll tune that in with their various satellite navigation computers, so they'll know exactly where they are on the course.
I think we just found out who ate all the pies. 54.6 kilometres to go, and a good effort to get up here, mate. It's probably a low loader. We will be coming to you on Twitter in just a wee while. Don't forget we have Basque Corner coming up as well after the break, where we'll be hopefully educating some of you with a brief bit of phraseology and translation from the locale. So yeah, they are plying their trade right now, and I'm just trying to see who it is that they've scrawled on the road, but from this angle, very difficult to see. Nonetheless, you've got plenty of choice. The guys who are up the road. Is it Roman Sicard who's the French Basque? It
is Sicard, yeah. His teammate David Malacani, the Italian, just on the front now. But Sicard was in the breakaway yesterday, so determined to do something in this race on not quite home soil, but of course he's a French-speaking, well, a Basque-speaking French.
So he will think it's home soil.
It is pretty much, isn't it?
They regard themselves very much as a nation, but in these troubled times, particularly out towards the eastern side of Europe, less said about that the better, I guess. Otherwise you get your gas cut off and things. 54.2 kilometres to go, and yeah, still couldn't get a handle on that, reading it backwards. I'm sure some of you have. There we are, past the tarpaulin protected ranches of the rabbit breeders of this part of the area. It's all about the hutches. 54.1 to go. It's going to get lively later on, and our mirth will ebb. The Goronchugaria. I made it up about the lizards, by the way. We said we were going to get a translation of that, which we failed to do, but we will have a phrase for you after the break, and we will be taking that fairly shortly. At the moment, it's all about Tinkoff Saxo, although, you know, BMC looking quite lively today. I love the fact that Cadel Evans just looked like he was back to his best, or approaching that anyway. He's a man who functions at the very, very highest, and still on his day can do exactly that.
Well, Cadel Evans is 4th place overall at only 36 seconds. And if he doesn't lose any time today, and he rode extremely strongly yesterday, always at the head of affairs and in the mix, never losing too much time, and looking really strong in that really distinctive style of his, always riding near the front. But he's been ably looked after as well by Sammy Sanchez, who took 3rd place on the stage. Good to see him back in the fray and in the mix again with those lovely golden seedy shoes which mark him out from the rest of his team. And then TJ Van Garderen as well, still a danger, 13th overall at only 58 seconds, so very close. But Cadel Evans, remember a few years back how good a time trialist he was, and it'd be good to see, you know, on his day he really could put some pressure on Alberto Contador, especially over the distance, because today's time trial is going to be, I think, looking back at the races we've had so far on the World Tour and on the international calendar, the longest time trial of the year so far at 25 kilometres. So within that kind of time you can put distance into your rivals if you're going well.
Yeah, very much so. So don't be surprised if Cadel manages to get a decent step on the podium. And we'll see what he does today, shall we? Tinkoff Saxo just drifting into the side of the road. It looks like Rory Southern's going to take over a bit of wind blocking duties in just a few moments. The Aussie is an absolute master at powering home. Put a lot of protection up yesterday, didn't he?
I don't think anybody gave him a turn. He was absolutely flying yesterday, and we did stick a tweet in to give a bit of a nod to the chef at Tinkoff Saxo to make sure he had a good hearty dessert, and I think she obliged as far as I know. Yeah,
it was apparently a frangipane souffle.
Good stuff.
Yeah. There we are. It's a minute and 42 is our gap. Do you know what? We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with Basque Corner. And so we'll pose the question, which is Komitak Suting Alkitu Dut. We'll have the answer to that after this. It's reasonably relaxing because the road is reasonably wide, which is great, and they are just on the catch. Is up. We're expecting for the finish today. We'll see how it goes. In fact, I beg your pardon, we're on a looping course, and it's going to be a headwind as we look at the San Esteban de Ezeiza Hermitage. Looks reasonably modern. I bet there's a shower facility in there as well. It's not like the old days with old sackcloth and attitude.
Looks like they've probably got a wet room there as well.
I think so. I mean, it's a really easy task these days being a monk. There we are. 48.9. Food still, you know. No booze either. Anyway, 48.8 kilometres to go, a little bit less than that. Just going back to Basque Corner. So, Gometak Suding al Kitu Dut.
Bekutja Gometa by Ellerdilsen du Batahunsen Uchayen.
I said, I find kite flying most relaxing.
And I replied, yes, I use a box kite to scare the mountain goats.
Yeah, we'll be producing a phrase book at some point. How sales will go is anyone's guess. I don't think we'll retire on it. These guys, they're having a little chat. Now, is this going to be about what they can possibly do a little bit later on? Philippe Gilbert is a wild card, I think, and he wasn't listed in our original break. Did he bridge? I don't think so.
No, I just don't think we got his number, so we're just marking him off. Another good addition to what is a stellar group. Just looking through some of these names.
I think probably primary amongst them in this sort of company.
Definitely. And again, probably I think he is the best overall in the group at only 8 minutes, but again, still no major threat. But of course, Philippe Gilbert, a big danger to take the stage. Of course, we've got Maxim Iglinski in the Astana kit there, number 106, a previous Bastogne-Liège winner as well. So some really good names, as well as Luis Leon Sanchez, Peter Seri, one of the riders from Amiga Pharma Quickset you don't normally see too much of, but he's managed to infiltrate this move today. And there's Javier Zandio from Team Sky, number 68 at 25 minutes. Unfortunately, we did lose Peter Kenyak and Vasily Kirienka yesterday. So Mikel Nieve has got a few less teammates, but he's still at 15th overall at 59 seconds is Nieve. So possibly a stage for him today. But again, did lose a handful of seconds in the finale yesterday. But I tell you, a ride that impressed me yesterday, we haven't talked about too much today, was young Simon Yates. On the attack, the foot of the final climb, and only lost a few seconds and is still at 17th overall. So I thought he might have got swallowed up and spat straight out the back, but he fought very valiantly and is looking very good for a very respectable general classification place as we look at the figure of Philippe Gilbert.
I've got a feeling that Gilbert actually was in no man's land for a while, because he is looking a bit tuckered out, and I think that he's joined this lot. We certainly didn't see him earlier on, so he was either off the back of it. And yeah, there's lots of sort of looks in faces and welcome aboards. That was Luis Leon Sanchez just drifting by him and having a chat. Most of them have actually spoken to him, so I think it's welcome to the gang, but also a bit of trepidation, I reckon. You just saw there Belkin's Boca Mollema also here. Warren Barguil as well. We've got plenty. If it doesn't work, who are your favourites today?
Again, it's very difficult.
I mean, if the break doesn't succeed.
Yeah, if the break does get mopped up, and at the moment their gap is going out slowly but surely. It's not some of the moves you see early that go early in the race get allowed a big lead of 5, 6, 7 minutes sometimes, and then that's gradually brought back. But this lead hasn't gone out too much, but at the moment it's creeping out. But of course, I would imagine that Tinkoff Saxe will be quite happy with this move to stay away, but they need to just keep the tempo high to deter any attacks from any general classification contenders. So essentially what we could see today pan out is 2 races within a race. It could be that this break stays away and they battle out for stage victory, and then we have a separate race a couple of minutes further down the road in relation to the GC, which could be very interesting indeed. But at the moment this breakaway working very well as a unit. But I think they'll probably ride together until the penultimate climb, where that's a big opportunity to try and leave people if possible, if you're feeling good. And that's where we could see Warren Barguil, for argument's sake, one of the finest climbers I think in this group. Obviously double stage winner at the Vuelta last year at the tender age of 21, showing immense strength and maturity there. So I would say that he could be one of the better climbers here. But again, this really is a mixed bag in this group. I
remember when Warren took that first stage win, and he was completely and utterly shocked. And we're actually saying now he's basically got to repeat the feat, and that's going to potentially be an awful long time. And he just rolled into it again almost immediately, and he was doubly shocked. But I think he basically had the stellar turn, and then all of a sudden all the pressure was taken off as well. So we'll see what he does today, because he was amazing then. And he's got to be amongst the favourites today, and to be honest, I would have tagged him if it not been for Philippe Gilbert. Boca Mollema as well, because he's got a turn of pace about him. So don't forget, he's got that downhill run for what, just over 8 kilometres into town. albeit with a headwind. But, you know, if you're a decent descender and you're in the break, you've got a very good chance. Likewise, there could be fireworks, as you say, Matt, because these guys will be descending like nutters coming off the final peak when they get there. And any seconds count for an awful lot, because Valverde is only 12 down. If he can find another 2 or 3, this could go absolutely to the wire in the time trial tomorrow.
Well, yesterday Valverde sneaked a couple of seconds, obviously escaped just off the front of the chasing group behind Wout Poels to steal 2 seconds from Contador on what was quite a technical finish. I mean, it's a finish that the riders know very, very well, but he used that opportunity to his advantage to steal a couple of seconds, which could prove absolutely crucial, because the gap now to Contador is only 12 seconds. So I think we will see Valverde go on the offensive again. Again, he was very, very shocked on that first stage when Contador left him behind on that very difficult climb with about 15 kilometres to go on the first stage, and didn't manage to peg Contador back. So he's going to want a bit of revenge, and as I said, he will keep attacking and he won't give in.
He certainly won't. As we come through Ulesti, a lot of brutalist architecture in this part of the world. I mean, how many windows aren't there on the side of that church?
It's going to be pretty dark in there, isn't it? It's probably got strip lighting or something.
I reckon it's a dartboard, and you know, full indoor lighting and jazzy shirts, that kind of thing. Anyway, it's been around since the 17th century, as you can see. Ibanez de Adelcoa Palace. So old Ibanez, he wanted protecting, and as a result, he just didn't like windows, clearly. Drafts, you know, stiff neck. 44.5 kilometres to go. We're looking at the head of the race. If it all comes together, don't count out the likes of Kwiatkowski. What about Wout Poels as well, doing a double? You never know. Michael Matthews for Orica Green Edges. They come to the fore in our thinking as Michael Albacini does his stuff. Michael Matthews is just such a hard man, and this is his kind of day.
Yeah, I think it just is going to come down to how hard Tinkoff Saxo or Movistar or even Amiga Pharma Quickstep take this penultimate climb, which is the hardest of the day, the Alto di Achua, which is coming up very, very soon, actually. That's where I think a lot of the fireworks will happen, and that will determine the group that goes to the finish in relation to who gets dropped out the back. A lot of the guys who can sprint, I would imagine, will get back, but Matthews is a pretty good all-rounder, as is Ben Swift, of course. But Swifty's still in there, so if it does all come together, you know, we could look at another battle between Ben Swift and Michael Matthews. But the other day, you can't forget, I mean, there was some other riders who you wouldn't normally expect to be in the mix in that sprint, and it was Kevin Razor who took second place from Europcar, and that was a very big surprise. And Arashiro was also up there, as well as the German Paul Martin. So a real mix.
Yeah, Paul Martin's a bit of a surprise. In fact, when it's got quick, he's been there and unperturbed by the climbs. It seems a number of you are saying that Gilbert indeed wasn't there earlier on, so good that our eyes were not fooled. But yes, he's here. And somebody saying, Peter Knight on Twitter saying, do you think he's out there to work for Sammy Sanchez? And will he, if required? Well, I guess we'll find out. .9 kilometres to go. We're on the Basque Country. It's the last real day of road racing, or last day of real road racing. Pick your own sentence. But tomorrow it's time trialling time, and as a result, precious seconds will be thrown up today. In the dive for the line is the Luxembourg champion, Mr. Bob Jungels. Just drifts off the nose. They're showing their duties beautifully. So yeah, we think there'll be a bit of a punch-up going on amongst the GC guys through these climbs. Now, we are coming up to our next peak. They will reach the top of it at 41 kilometres to go, so 2.7 remaining. Then once they get down here, it's the last bit of plane that they will deal with that's actually an uphill drag. They'll go on that before they have the big test of the day, the Ichua. Not the same as yesterday, I might add. We're on a looping course and we'll be coming back to some of the mountains, but in an easier way. That said, it's still a huge test.
It certainly is. 3%. Quite shallow at the bottom of the climb, then it kicks up to 5.7%, 6.8, and then 8%, and then 7, then 8.3. So gradually gets harder and harder, and it is Movistar now who are taking up the pace setting here, and just looking at the line there, there has been a definite injection in pace. Just to obviously that's Valverde sat in 4th place back in the points jersey, which he leads by a couple of points from Michal Kwiatkowski, and by the pace that's being set there, I imagine they're going to be eating into the lead of the front group at the moment. So it's quite surprised to see Mobistar chasing at the moment.
It is, and they're doing a fantastic job. Philippe Pierre Roland, beg your pardon. I knew I got his first name wrong. Pierre Roland also bouncing as well, nicely. He's a man that hasn't really functioned either. We were talking about some of the failures so far this season, and the Schleck brothers foremost amongst them. But Roland was called as being the next French hope, and it hasn't really worked for him. And there are more youngsters coming through. In fact, it all bodes very well for France. Spain have had their time for a while, and of course they're still very much up there to the forefront of our thinking. You don't automatically, right, you have Tommy Vogler as a real star turn. But somebody who's capable of delivering a Grand Tour, they're starting to come to us as youngsters, as potential. And I feel like the base of French cycling at the moment is improving beyond recognition over the last few years.
Well, they've had several years, it's fair to say, in the doldrums really, with the riders coming through that look extremely hopeful. I mean, one of them was Bruno Thibault, of course, who's here today and riding very well actually. Obviously we've got Barguil coming through, but I think the French at the moment, rather than Grand Tour contenders, they've got one of several of the strongest sprinters in the world. Of course, Arnaud Demer, Nacer Bouhanni from FDJ. So they really are getting some results, and FDJ, a very, very good team with several good sprinters. And of course, they've got some of the veterans doing really well. Jean-Christophe Perrault as well for Agi Desart, and Agi Desart are I think they're leading the World Tour in terms of team at the moment. So they've had a fantastic season. I think that's courtesy of Perrault himself and Betancourt, who was absolutely flying over the last few weeks, but unfortunately pulled out after the first stage. So French cycling definitely on the up, and in pretty rude health as we see the breakaway. It looks like there's some more impetus now because the team cars have been pulled out of the gap, so that suggests that the gap has dropped down now. You saw the team cars pulling over to the right hand side of the road, using that opportunity to give the riders a bit of a bottle, a bit of a feed, and encourage them, give them the time gap. But now all we have behind the leading 16 or 17 riders is the Mavic neutral service car.
There we are. We'll be seeing a lot of neutral service, of course, this coming weekend when we get to the pavé sections within what is one of the biggest tests of the season. Can't wait for the Paris-Roubaix.
I am pretty excited to be involved in commentating on that. I must admit, it's going to be an absolute privilege, if you don't mind me saying. I'm very excited. We're on air for 3.5 hours. So
it'll fly.
It's going to be absolutely spectacular. I know a lot of you out there are going to be watching, and there's a lot of you who are watching the highlights are going to be watching later on, but it's going to be absolutely fantastic and difficult to call. Obviously there's an out-and-out favourite, Fabian Cancellara, very, very short odds on him, but a lot of other people who could to bring into the mix. And of course that's a race that's not just about ability, it's about luck on the day too. So, but it's going to be a fantastic spectacle whatever happens.
Stein de Volder, incidentally, he had shortened for Flanders down to I think about he was sort of 10s, that kind of thing. He's drifted back out for the Paris-Roubaix to 50s at the bookmakers. I think that's a very good deal.
Well, I'm thinking of putting a bit of a punt on Stein de Volder. Last week he rode so strongly and was clearly one of the strongest riders in the race, but had those 2 falls, very, very bad falls actually. His elbow was cut up, but despite that got back on and chased valiantly, so clearly in condition, and obviously that was on home soil in Flanders in the National Championship jersey of Belgium. But I think he's going to be very, very motivated for the Paris-Roubaix and will be the perfect foil, I think, for Fabian Cancellara should he maintain the condition that he had last week, and hopefully those injuries aren't too bad.
There are some very big prices out there, mainly because there are some out-and-out favourites, as you well know, primary amongst whom is Fabian Cancellara.
That looks like their figure. This nice aerial shot, that beautiful countryside, all the cedars there, as the riders weave their way through up this climb, and it looks like the figure of Maxim Iglinski, a surprise winner back in 2012 of Liège, Bastogne-Liège, so very at home on these undulating roads. But of course another key rider, very experienced rider in the breakaway from Orica Greenedge is the Swissman Michael Albacini took out the Tour of Catalonia, so a couple of years ago in 2012, as well as the Tour of Austria, 3 stages of the Tour of Switzerland, of course won the Tour of Britain back in 2010, and won a couple of a stage on the Tour of Spain, and also second in Flèche Wallonne. So arguably, alongside Philippe Gilbert, one of the most experienced and strongest riders on this sort of terrain, as we go back to Movistar, who really are putting in a bit of a frantic chase at the moment.
They are, and it's all about Alejandro Valverde at the moment, and you're looking at him. He's wearing the white jersey, 35 seconds only. Well, it shows that the reignited, I think, powerhouse that is the Movistar. Incidentally, Valverde saying that he'd ordered his team to just keep something in reserve for today. He realised he made a tactical error when he just didn't give Contador enough respect on day one. He wasn't minded to watch him, or indeed play against him, as it were. And so valuable seconds lost. Yesterday he was making up ground, but showed how much he'd kept in the bank at the very end by nicking back a couple of seconds. And apparently it's today where he's going to have a go, at least of distancing Contador. And they've decided to pick it up at this point. It was just come through one of the quarry sections. We'll keep an eye on this, and we'll be back off this descent for the remainder. There's only as they flow down this descent, and look at that, it's not long before we start picking up not just the breakaways, but you will see the chasers as well, just rolling off the nose of the break as we came, but the chase by Movistar. Now they're being rather cheeky here. They're trying to vary the pace, and I imagine they'll be handing climbing duties straight back to Tinkoff Saxo after putting the Warriors on them. But they came down there like men possessed.
They certainly did, like veritable bats out of hell. They really have got the bit between the teeth, and it's very interesting when they took up the tempo there, because I get this right, Tinkoff Saxo have been riding for that long on the undulating road, the first part of the stage, and let them ride the last couple of climbs. But what they've done, they've put such an injection of pace in. There's only a couple of teammates left, and what I think they're trying to do, they've recognised that and are driving this along to try and isolate Alberto Contador. So it looks as if Valverde now has almost a full complement, or at least 5 riders to back him up over the last couple of climbs, which are very, very difficult. And Contador now only has 2 teammates left, and I think they've looked at that and exploited the situation, because of course riding on the front for kilometre after kilometre, day after day, takes its toll. And but again, that's the nature of stage racing, and you have to look at weaknesses, and I think Movistar are looking to isolate as best they can Alberto Contador to give Valverde as much of a chance on the last couple of climbs.
Nelson Oliveira, the Portuguese, by the way, for Lampre Moride, pretty handy time trials. I think he was national Portuguese champion actually a couple of years ago. He rides very well on a descent, as you know, from, if you are a holiday maker from the Atlantic coast, or if you visited the Atlantic coast of Portugal. It's very much like this kind of profile. When you get an oceanic coast such as that, as opposed to a sea, then it chops into the geology and throws up lots of peaks and crests, and so he's done his stuff out there and just gone off the nose of the break. Meanwhile, back in the bunch there is Valverde in his white jersey, and look at the teammates he's got around him. He's 5 around him, so a lot of protection. I wouldn't be surprised if this punching and counter punching rolls on and Movistar really start going into beating up mode.
Definitely. Jose Herrada, number 2, an extremely good climber. I mean, there's no bad climbers in Movistar, especially the team that they send to this particular race, but Herrada is setting a ferocious tempo, and there's, looking at the aerial shots of the bunch, although we do have 16 riders up the road, the bunch is definitely thinned out, and I would imagine that some of the guys that will be possibly looking at the sprint are now further down the road, because this pace hasn't let up at all. The lead now down to 15 seconds, and obviously Oliveira has a little bit more of a lead, looking very good actually. He's opened up a bit of a gap, looking very determined, and there will be a little bit of disarray behind with a guy up the road. People will say, well, it's not my turn to chase, and they'll also be thinking that the gap has been shut down. They'll have the radio mics in, be acutely aware of the gap. So I think we will see Oliveira stay out in front for a bit longer, and probably this break will come back in the next few kilometres, Carlton.
Well, this is that little plateau that we're talking about, and you can see he's absolutely solid of shoulder, Oliveira. He's got into time trialling mode and is doing a decent job. You see Rui Costa as well, the world champion with his hoops sort of dead centre. Might be a day where he has a go. He's way down the order, so he might be let off the leash if it does come to cat and mouse, but at the moment it's chase down. And we are just about to start climbing, incidentally. It's about now they're going to make a turn, and then they'll be heading up the Alto de Ichua. We were here yesterday, but it's a different road up this mountain that we mentioned earlier on in the programme, if you're only just joining us. The Ichua itself, and this particular route up it, maxes out at 8.33%. The average is given as 6.59, but that includes rather an unfair entree of 3% over the opening kilometre. So really, I think it's more focused than it actually suggests, and that's why the race is on to get there quickly.
Definitely. Well, the breakaway certainly aren't giving up. They'll know that the gap has come down considerably. You can see a little bit more determination. A few kilometres ago, they were riding in more of a relaxed manner, but they're certainly pressing on now. But of course, they'll also be trying to take breaks as well. And there'll be a little bit of psychological warfare going on. But the thing is, with 16 riders out front, they can adapt and change the pace accordingly. You know, all it takes is a good 30-second turn on the front at flat stick, and then you get a good minute and a half, almost 2-minute rest sometimes before you're on the front again. So they can use their strength in numbers to open up this lead. But I think Movistar, they're not so worried about actually bringing this back. They just want to keep the tempo as high as possible to put Contador into difficulties. And certainly they won't want to see any more yellow and blue jerseys coming back into that main group, which has been severely whittled down.
I've seen Contador on occasion some seasons when he's been busy, not being quite so. He's had a very full programme at the top of the year. Doesn't seem to have diminished his talents at all, because he's been known to take long breaks.
Well, I do believe he's not now riding he's not planning to ride the Ardennes Classics. He's clearly going very well and is looking set fair to possibly win this race. He's certainly in a very, very strong position, but going to take a break. And you'd think that if you're at the top of your form that you would actually continue racing, but clearly riders have much more structured programs and set objectives these days, and will generally just race when they need to, with a view to winning. So Contador is going to back off, take a rest, do some training before he comes back to look at his Tour de France preparation, no doubt by riding the Dauphin.
Yes, well, we'll see how he goes in the Dauphiné. We'll look forward to doing that as well in the lead up to the Tour de France. And what a tour it's going to be, with Contador, with Nibali, with Froome. It's going to be a special one.
It certainly is. I'm very, very excited about the Tour de France and the Giro, which is only round the corner now. I can't believe how quickly the season has unfolded, and it's been a fantastic season. As we again, I love it when the camera goes low on the road, gives that a real impression of speed. These cameramen are extremely skilled and get some of the best pictures for us here on Eurosport. So fantastic stuff.
Philippe Gilbert just rolling towards the front. He's going to be helping out before you know it. Lotte Belisol also involved here. It's Tim Wellens, incidentally, who had a brief chat with Gilbert. Alliances can be formed and smashed to pieces, obviously, when there's a chance of victory. But we'll see whether they work together well here. I think they will. I think they've got a lot of strength here. Warren Bargoy in particular for Giant Shimano. And Dan Oliver, he's got a teammate with him. And suddenly, just behind, it's Movistar that are leading into the climb, and there's no respite here at all. The man they're trying to find out exactly what he's got is Alberto Contador, is just behind. Now, this peak, let's talk about it. It's quite a bit of a climb, this. They don't reach the top of it until 25 to go. Baranyaga, just coming through there. Some of these places familiar to you from yesterday, as we mentioned. Once they get to the top, there'll be 25 kilometres to go until the line. However, this is an absolutely crucial descent because it's a long one. Off the peak of 25, they don't start climbing again until 14. So we have 11 kilometres of really quick downhill. The first, 4 or 5 kilometres of it off the peak will be very fast. And if you know that Valverde is a fantastic descender. Now, Contador's pretty handy himself. So it's going to be very pacey.
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting situation. There's an added impetus now to the leaders, and they're working very, very smoothly again together. But I've no doubt that Movistar are going to set a ferociously hot tempo up this penultimate climb, the Alto di Acciue, the first category climb, to try and isolate Contador even more. I've no doubt that he'll have Poligno with him, and I think Kreuziger, they're two of the best climbers in his squad. The other riders are now spent and then down the road after riding most of the day on the front on the more undulating roads, but he's still got two, it looks like, two specialist climbers with him. But again, if Valverde gets a gap over the top, Contador only has two teammates to chase, and Valverde is an extremely talented descender. Obviously, this climb, the more difficult than the penultimate one, I think Valverde used both opportunities to try and attack and isolate Alberto Contador. But of course, if he gets a gap of 15-20 seconds over the top, everybody then is going to be looking to Contador to chase, and possibly with only one or two teammates left, it's going to put him on the back foot and under pressure. So Contador will be, I'd imagine he's thinking, this is going to be very, very interesting. But what, of course, he is blessed with is an amazing ability to climb. So I'm sure he'll be up to the task, but it's going to play out extremely interesting over the next few kilometres. You can see the gradient starting to kick in now.
Yep. You've got to be able to climb, you've got to be able to descend, and you've got to be able to time trial, and that essentially is what's left in this Tour of the Basque Country. So it suits both Valverde and Contador, and so you are privileged to have the battle being played out live for you right here on Eurosport, your home of cycling. Thank you so much for all of your comments, kind, some of them, most of them actually, today. It's been an absolute joy to have you on board. If you'd like to join the conversation, then it is Real Stevens, that's with a PH in the middle rather than a V, or Carlton Kirby, and if you hashtag Eurosport Cycling, then it goes to the wider family. You might even have your questions and thoughts being read in pick a language. The tentacles of Eurosport reach far and wide, which is great. 30.8 kilometers to go, and this is a brief hiatus as far as the break is concerned. As you can see, they still have maintain this rather pleasant alliance. Frankly, they're all doing a decent job. They've all got a chance of doing something out there, and there doesn't seem to be any bitterness yet.
Not at all. Well, Nelson Felipe Oliveira from Lampre Merida, who did try and escape for a few kilometres, has been brought back into the fold of what is an extremely powerful breakaway. Great shot here of Philippe Gilbert, resplendent with those little World Championship bands on the end of his sleeves. Great couple of shots there from the Belgian. A master at this sort of terrain, obviously with an eye on the Ardennes Classics coming up in the next couple of weeks. Obviously a previous winner of Liège-Bastogne-Liège himself, and he'll be looking at really testing his form. But it's still Movistar setting a relentless rhythm. Just look at that long line. There's guys going out the back, left, right and centre now.
There certainly are. Well, we'll see whether some of the teams who haven't put in such a big turn have got anything left in terms of resources later on. I'm fascinated, or I will be, to see what BMC deliver at the top of the final peak, to be honest. I guess we're going to find out. We're heading for the penultimate climb, the peak of, in a moment. .2 to go, and still Movistar putting on the hurt on Alberto Contador. That's the idea. Whether it will be successful or not, we're going to find out. Kwiatkowski's still very close at hand as well, let's not forget. The man from Omega Pharma Quickstep. And, well, we know he can climb, and we know he can go quickly. And it may well be that he's looking to just shine more than brightly today. He's 41 seconds down. I'd say he's probably not as good a time trialer as Valverde and Contador, but he's got so much in his armoury, to be honest. He's fast, he can climb, and on his day he's just amazing. He might be looking for seconds as well today. Well,
Kwiatkowski, as you say, is, I don't mind saying, he's a consummate all-rounder, and he's still very young. But he won the time trial in the Volta Algarve this year, beating teammate Tony Martin, so he could be a little bit of a danger. And of course, Wout Poels at only 55 seconds, so Omega Pharma Quickstep have two riders in the top 10, and of course they've got Peter Seri in this break, the Flandrian, but this gap does look like it's coming down despite the concerted efforts of a very unified breakaway. It does seem that Movistar are now eating into this lead, and after his previous efforts of attacking, Oliveira has waved goodbye to his breakaway companions and will soon be eaten up by a rampaging peloton, or what's left of it.
Yes, exactly. He'll be a light snack as they try and feast themselves, I guess, on these guys. There's too much talent, for my mind, up here. I think the likes of Gilbert, who was given the excuse, really, not a free pass, but the excuse of having done a lot of work to get back into the break, or at least relay on, reach out and get to it, to bridge to it. He's here now, and he's a massive danger because he's got some proper pace, can climb as well. He's 8 minutes and 28 down, so he's not a GC problem as far as the main bunch are concerned, working for Valverde and Contador. But he's a problem for these guys.
It certainly is. It's a double-edged sword in a positive way for Gilbert and BMC here, because as we see the Mavic neutral service car buzz by the outside of that breakaway, that means the lead has gone under 30 seconds. Of course, many of you will now know and be very familiar with the way that neutral service works. It'll come in behind a breakaway once it has established a lead of 30 seconds, and the sight of that pulling away does mean it's coming under 30 seconds now, so that I think their days are numbered. But they're still tapping away at the front, and it's Bobby Jungels, the Luxembourg champion, doing his work.
Mr. Bill Jungels. I've got a feeling that some of these guys might actually just attack. We'll see. 29.1 to go, so they've still got some proper climbing to do. There's a lot of looking over shoulders. Who's got something left in the tank? It's been a long day to be out there and relaying as a rather large team time trial, which they've been engaged in. It's been a fat, in terms of numbers, break this. Just look at this lean line of talent as well that's coming up behind them. Alejandro Valverde's boys, Movistar, are doing a fantastic job. This is almost like a slow motion shootout, isn't it?
It is.
On this climb.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens if and when this breakaway gets caught. But at the moment, Movistar riding immensely strong. It looks like Valverde has the vast majority of teammates with him. It looks like Inchowski was there, Bennett Inchowski, and Jose Herrada looked to be, from what I've been seeing, most of the work on the front. But still, all the main GC contenders, I think, are still in there, including Kwiatkowski, Cadel Evans, Sammy Sanchez. So still all to play for, but the bunch, that's a lovely shot there. You can see the snaking nature of this climb, and the plumb line drawn straight through, and you can just now see the group as Michael Albacini, it looks like, has just sat up and is drifting back. He's had enough. But Bobby Jungels just taken it up at the front.
Yeah, he has. Just doing the Luxembourg champion, just having a look by, or look by all of those who remain in the break, and it's suddenly picked up just a little bit more pace. Just for the time being, Philippe Gilbert is locked in. It looks like it's just broken down ever so slightly. He's in the second of this little minor split that we've got. The second of, so will soon be declared as chasers. And here come the peloton, and look at Movistar. They are just a powerhouse at the moment, and they're doing a great job of turning up the heat on absolutely everyone. This is a very select group that's suddenly dead center of your screen at the moment, and just reaching over, and indeed soon surely to have the better of the breakaway today. Look at this. This is a proper climb today, don't forget, and the pace that they're putting up here is remarkable. And Alejandro Valverde has just got one man in front of him, and I'm just wondering whether his guys are going to be used as in a blocking maneuver here as he goes for it. Give him a little bit of a launch pad. He looks handy.
Possibly. Normally a team leader will be sat a couple of riders back unless he's going to launch himself up the road. Valverde won't ever set the tempo on his own. He'll only do one thing, or two things, sorry. He'll either sit behind or he will attack. And Contador was only a couple of wheels back in that very familiar bobbing style he's got, but the breakaway now has absolutely torn asunder. This climb gets steeper as it progresses. We're on the 8% section now, then lessens slightly before rearing up again to 8.3% at the top. So a very difficult and challenging climb.
It is extraordinarily difficult and challenging. We have 3 kilometers to go until we get to the top. 8% they're on at the moment. Just eases down to 7. They'll barely notice it, but they will notice when it kicks back up to nearly 8.5%. And they're equal to it at the moment, and so is Contador, equal to everything that Movistar are throwing at him. Those who we thought might have something left in the tank to attack, it hasn't happened. Philippe Gilbert looked like he'd been found out. Too much effort to get into the break or go over to it, has obviously had a cost, and we're still nowhere near the top here.
Definitely. I think although Philippe Gilbert is a master climber, it's generally on the shorter climbs of 2 to 3 kilometres. This climb is a little bit of a different proposition, and he is riding with some climbing specialists. Bobby Youngles, a very good climber himself, and Bauke Mollema, an extremely good climber, surging past the moment for Belkin in the strip that I'm very, very fond of, the black and green strip, driving this three-man breakaway. And it looks like the other passenger in that group is Tim Wellens from Lotto Belisol.
It is indeed confirmation of that for you right now, but I think they're absolutely doomed. There's just too much driving talent behind them, especially within the Movistar team. The Movistar boys are also relaying themselves beautifully. They're in a superb little mountain loop that's going on at the moment. The only man who's not taking a turn is Alejandro Valverde, the protected rider. Just behind him, unfortunately, right on his wheel, is Alberto Contador. So, and in fact, it's where is he? Where is Valverde and the white jersey? There he is. He was just screened momentarily by his teammates, and it is Iglinski that's found from the break, and there'll be plenty more. It's not a big gap, it's almost indefinable or undiscernible. They've called out the Mavic neutral car, that's gone, and now these three are remaindered at the front from the break.
It's always interesting to see this great side-on shot from the helicopter of Bauke Mollema on the front. All these riders have got really differing style. Mollema clawing quite a big gear there, powering his way up this climb. Tim Wellens, the 22-year-old from Belgium, turning a lower gear forward on the saddle, clearly in a bit of distress, but still riding very, very strongly. And Bobby Youngles again in a different gear again, sitting quite back on the saddle.
You know, they've kicked off here. They've actually rebuilt a little bit of a gap, and this is great. Lotto Belisol, it's Belkin's Bauke Mollema at the front at the moment. Belisol's Tim Wellens is here. Bob Youngles, the Luxembourg champion. Now, Bauke Mollema, we said from the break, was going to be one of those who was a favourite. That's before Gilbert came over. Ron Borghi and Michael Albassini also here. But Mollema is the only one of those declared favourites from that group that we thought was capable of going all the way. Now, it's a question. Look at this. Big check behind by Alejandro Valverde. Sees Contador right there. Very hard to read Contador because he has exactly the same rolling style, no matter how fatigued he is. And that was a big look to see just what the danger is remaining from that.
Definitely. He always, from time to time, will take a glance over your shoulder to see what damage is being done. You do need to look in front as best you can, but clearly the reason that Movistar are riding hard is to reduce this group as much as possible and put Alberto Contador under as much pressure as they can.
Right now, it does not seem to be working, but will it? Well, the camera searches amongst the pine cones here to recognise our riders and indeed acknowledge them as they come across the top. These trio will be the first over this big test today, the Ichua. They declared it as the easier route up, but to be honest, it's looked equally as challenging as yesterday, if not a little more so. Maybe as it's deeper into the event, I guess. Fatigue will set in when you're constantly being presented with this sort of profile to deal with. They're doing a great job right now. Bauke Mollema is an absolute... If these guys go over, Mollema's got a good chance here. Yeah,
he took a fantastic stage win, more of an opportunist win in the Vuelta last year. So against Spain is a bit of a happy hunting ground for him. And of course, second on general classification in the Tour of Switzerland. So totally at home in the mountains, and of course 6th overall last year in the Tour de France, so an extremely classy rider and arguably the favourite should this group stay clear. But there's Tony Martin taking up the pace from Movistar with Kwiatkowski on his wheel.
He is. He's drawing him into the battle zone as we speak. And this will be a bit of respite for Movistar, and I think Alejandro Valverde might have just told them, look, just knock it back a little bit and I'll do something on the descent. We've got another climb still to come, don't forget. They will start that climb, incidentally, with 14 kilometres to go. You think, well, it's way down the road. Believe me, they are going to be descending very, very rapidly off this peak. And the trio of breakaway riders, who are the remnants of a very big break of about 15 riders earlier on, suddenly find themselves in a happy place. We'll see how happy they are to go down this as we reach the crest of the Ichua. 25.8 to go, and they will get be the first to have some respite, but there'll be no rest for the wicked behind, because Alejandro Valverde and Contador can descend brilliantly. Kwiatkowski needs to stay with them and do something when it gets to the final test. And here come the main contenders.
Taking it over the top, the gap to the three escapees, 24 seconds. So the three escapees haven't lost too much time over that climb. They actually pulled out a little bit, but that's a drastically reduced bunch. As you can see, the stragglers now accelerating over the top to try and keep into contention as we head to the three leads, being led by the Luxembourg National Road Race champion with 25 kilometres to go, Bobby Jungels, and young Tim Wellens from Lotto Belisol, 22 years of age, on his wheel.
Now, this descent, thankfully it's been dry all week, so there's not even any remaining moisture underneath the trees, which can be a danger. Sort of holds it, if you like, puts a blanket on it, and the moisture tends to stay there. The road surface is very good. It's partially worn, and that's what you want, not a brand new surface. And the chase is on as they come down. Now, the speeds, I'm hoping we're going to get that graphic back up, will on some occasions approach 80 kilometres per hour. What was your fastest ever, by the way?
My fastest, I think, it was in miles an hour. We're talking. I used to calibrate my computer in K's now, but it was 61 miles an hour I got on a descent in Switzerland. I think it was a race called the Tour of East Switzerland, on a very long straight descent with not many corners.
Down a valley, I bet.
Yeah, and it was a little bit frightening, but that's my highest record, and that was something else. I think when you're travelling at this sort of speed, you just got to forget that you're actually your only point of contact with the road is about 2 or 3 millimetres of rubber.
The only danger here, really, is that there is a lot of negative camber. You'll see some of the corners that they take, and rather than providing a little bit of gentle banking to help you around the corner, it's exactly the opposite. And so if you misjudge it in that regard, you can get slung out of the corner and over to the other side of the road. It is quite benign, as you can see, which means it's pacey. And look, if you're a decent descender, look at the gaps you can throw up. This is free energy.
It definitely is. It's all about who's the most confident on the descent. Some riders are more confident than others. Others are more skillful. But here there are really big gaps appearing. And it looks as if it's a bulk monomer who is possibly struggling under the pressure and skill descending of Bobby Jungels from Trek Factory Racing, who's descending with immense skill and panache at the moment. But this is a very, very fast descent, a very steep gradient for the next couple of kilometres before the road still continues to go downhill, but at a far less gradient, and that's when I would imagine they'll get back together again and start working. But at the moment, it's each man for themselves, trying to pick out the most effective and safest racing line.
Yeah, exactly. When you have a lot of sort of gentle corners like this, suddenly you get one thrown in that heads around the headland. Here's one coming up right now. Taking this at pace is a danger, because you can get thrown out to the other side of the road. That was a beautiful example. You know, Bo Jangles is doing a great job. Mr. Jungels, I beg your pardon.
It's always
there he is.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's even the helicopter didn't believe he'd be that far down the road.
He's absolutely flying, and there are some really tight corners on this descent. It's a very snaking descent, but he's descending here like he's an absolute local. It's possible that he's been down it before, and Tim Wellens is doing pretty well, but it's blimey, we're looking for Volker Mollema. He's lost about 5 or 6 seconds on that descent, and that's not going to be he's not going to be particularly chuffed with that. But yeah, descending like an absolute demon.
Let's see who's pulling out the stops as well from the pack as the helicopter just pans back. So we didn't have any ground vision for you. Kwiatkowski stayed very much in touch. It looks like one of the Sky Boys has actually just rolled to the right. No, one of the Movistars, I beg your pardon. There is Valverde in his white jersey, and just behind him is the leader's jersey of Alberto Contador. It's almost exactly the same hue as the Tinkoff Saxo, so it doesn't actually look like he's wearing the leader's jersey, but there you are. He is. 21.7 to go. They haven't shaken him.
They certainly haven't. It's all going to come down to the final climb, which is the Alto de Aista, the second category ascent, 5 Ks long, so quite a long dig, but the gradient far less at an average of 5.5%. But there is a part just at the top of the climb of 9.5%, so quite steep at the top of the next climb, and I think that's where we're going to see some action take place.
This is a very long descent. You can see we've just eaten into what, nearly 8 kilometres very, very quickly indeed. There's a rather nasty piece of furniture that they've just been over there, street furniture I should say. It's like a sleeping policeman, like a raised piece of tarmac. They're streaming into town, so they've been over one of the peaks. The city here is not the prettiest, as you can see, but it sits in the centre of a bowl, and the hillsides are absolutely glorious. So I guess if you're on the top of a tower block, at least you've got something nice to look at, provided there's not another tower block next door. 20.8 kilometres to go, and they've got this last climb then today. And in fact, the last climb in open racing conditions that we're dealing with, tomorrow's time trial does have 2 peaks, and that could be trouble for some.
Definitely, it's certainly going to favour the climbers amongst the field, or the guys who can ride well. So a flat time trial is very difficult. Very different than a completely flat time trial, and actually lend itself more to Alberto Contador. Of course, you can remember back to last year's Tour de France when Contador finished only 9 seconds behind a rampaging Chris Froome, whereas ordinarily the gaps between Contador and Froome in time, the flatter time trials were far more. So Contador could still, do a good ride tomorrow, but definitely with the gap only being 12 seconds to Alejandro Valverde, he needs to pay attention on this final climb to make sure that Valverde doesn't shave any more seconds off that rather slender lead that he's got at the moment.
Yes. By the way, Bo Jungels took the triptyque, the Mont et Chateau, and so he knows how to do a few peaks, to be honest. Youth classification, finished on the podium of the Criterium International this year, and he's only 21 years of age. So youthful exuberance, and he's displaying it here. He's descending like a veteran.
I know. Well, sort of Tim Wellens as well, a very young prospect, 22 years of age, 10th overall on the Tour of Beijing in 2012, and an 8th on general classification in the Tour of Wallonia. A very hilly, difficult race. Similar hills to today. So again, he's riding out of his skin today, but it's at the moment, Jungels is on his own.
He can time trial as well, so he's in a happy place right now. How he'll climb, we'll see. He's done a decent job amongst others. We'll take a break. The 21-year-old Luxembourg champion, all of a sudden Mollema and Wellens have started to get back to him, and he'll need their help on the sprint day. So the sprint, he was 3rd. We're talking about Jungels here, by the way. And then on the climbing day, albeit up to the Col de l'Hôpital, and enough to put people in hospital as well, he finished 13th and lost out right at the very last. So he can climb like a demon as well. He's a great time trialist, as we've seen. Super descender. He could do with a bit of help here from Bauke Mollema and Tim Wellens, but don't be surprised if he goes very deep into this climb and produces a surprise. Especially if everyone looks at themselves.
Definitely, it's a very, very good piece. An excellent piece of descending by the young Luxembourg champion, getting into a very good aerodynamic tuck here. Does look powerful and very, very. He just looks good on the bike. Sat quite far forward. He's almost in a position that he would adopt on his low-profile bike there, but I think he's totally committed. You could argue that it might be advisable or sensible to wait for his 2 chasing counterparts to add a little bit of firepower and impetus to the breakaway, but he's committed here. If they get across, it's not because he's waited, it's because they've got the ability to get across. But to look at Movistar here, they are chasing, they really are driving this hard. They're not going to let an inch here.
Yep, they're not that bothered about the boys up the road. This is about hurting Contador, and Movistar have been called into action. Tony Martin is here, and it's more than equal to the pace, it seems, especially on this kind of terrain. And just behind him, so Martin's in 4th place for Omega Pharma Quickstep, you see the white Polish champions jersey. The white points leaders jersey on Valverde is just behind. These guys are Wellens from Lotto livery jersey, but Bob Jungels is still out there, and there he is, just about to be joined by this trio. Is he? No, not quite. Oh yes, there we are. Thank you, Phil. Thanks. Yeah. So if they come together, he could use their help, but I guess they may well just wonder who is the potential victor here, because they're all talented, this trio.
Very, very talented trio, all very good in their own right, all with different attributes, but the power of Mollema here, he'll be disappointed and a bit frustrated that he let the wheel go on that descent, but descending is something, it's a skill, it's an art form, but what you can't do is follow. If you can't follow a rider and you're not comfortable in following a rider on a descent, the best thing to do is just to back off, otherwise you start to take unnecessary risks. And if you ride out of your comfort zone on a descent, it can be very, very dangerous. So clearly Mollema wasn't happy with the amazing pace being set by Youngs, but now the junction has been made, but that's a lot of energy energy he's wasted, but now I think they're definitely going to be better off in relation to trying to keep the bunch at bay as a trio rather than a disparate group of 1 and 2.
This is the rundown to the foot of the final climb. It comes with 14 kilometers to go. The race director just crawling through some bikes as they take a little bit of a toot on bottles. Just still doing their pace, fast as they look, is being matched by the trio up the road. Jungels basically has got to do it again, and his great advantage is he's got this superb descending skill, and he'll be descending all the way to the line and then knocking into his time trialing skills as the incline just eases a little bit. But over this peak, so in very short order, in fact, in well, it'll be at 8.2. When that says 8.2 to go at the top, that's when the downhill begins, and Jungels got a chance if they can stay away on this climb.
Definitely, with the gap now down to only 18 seconds, so it does look like as if they may be caught, but should this breakaway succeed and crest the final climb with a bit of a gap, Bobby Youngels will be thinking, you know, if I can stay together with these guys on the climb, I can definitely leave them on the descent. I think it was probably a surprise to him that he left them with so much apparent ease, but he's definitely got the joker card up his sleeve should they stay together over the top.
18 seconds. It's holding station just now. If they can get over with 18 seconds, Jungels has got a chance because he's a terrific time trialist, despite the fact that he is a young man, and we know about his descending skills. We've just witnessed it. You can see out of the saddle, so the pace is high on this more moderate climber, I suppose you might say, but the nasty part of this, it extends between third and fourth kilometre of this 5k climb that we're dealing with is 9.5%. So it's a proper ramp just at the point that it really matters. They are going to hurt. How much? Let's find out. Well, they're just round the corner. I think they're probably round the bend. 13.2 to go. They're going to feel like they have had one tortuous day today.
Well, they really are driving it hard, and one of the worst places to be caught when you've been driving on the flat and then on a climb is midway up a climb. Generally, there'll be nothing left in their reserves, and this breakaway is 100% committed, and they've lost Wellens, so it's just the duo of Mollema and Bobby Jungels. Now, look at the determination on the young Luxembourger's face, riding a very, very good tempo. Mollema rocking and rolling, but it's just too much for the young 22-year-old from Lotto Belisol, and the bunch now not too far behind at all.
No, so Tim Wellens has blown out of this little break. You'll be seeing him coming backwards into this chasing bunch in just a few moments' time. They'll bridge over to him. However, Bob Jungels, the Luxembourg champion, is at the front here with Bauke Mollema in the green and black. He flicked his elbow out earlier on, and Mollema just couldn't respond. Does so now, just to give a little bit of respite to the young 21-year-old Luxembourg with the Luxembourg flag red across his shoulders. They are the head of the race, but for how much longer? The camera, just watch the corner and you'll see the emerging pack coming around. Oh, goodness me. It's, well, it's possible, but to be honest, nigh on impossible as they look back and realise the task at hand.
Yes, it does look like these guys, the days are numbered. I don't think there's going to be any let up in the chase, and exactly, look at that, Movistar still leading the chase on a bunch that's now reduced to probably only about 20 to 25 riders, and there's a big attack on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that Damiano Cunego is involved again in the chase. We'll have a check on that for you in just a few moments' time.
It's Peter Weening.
There he is.
The rangy Dutchman from Arica Greenedge, who takes it up and has flown off the front, turning a massive gear there. But an interesting move from Weening as we see Philippe Gilbert get distance after being in the breakaway earlier on today.
He's had a few days where he's rolled the dice early, and in fact sometimes extraordinarily late as well. You remember the climb into Arezzo on the Tirreno Adriatico didn't quite work, and Peter Sagan taking that. These guys are just starting to split, and they are in company. This is Valverde who's having a look. Beg your pardon.
It's
Peter Weening, yes, just trying to bridge over, beg your pardon. 12.4 kilometres to go. Where is Valverde? Look at Contador as well, just having a look, just drifting out and taking some vision of the road and just wondering whether he's going to go for this himself. There is Valverde and Contador together. Contador with that sort of meerkat look. He does have great vision, just simply by the way he rides upon his bike. There, just going over, and it looks like the bridge has been made, at least for now. How will they go off the top of this, though? And can Bo Jungels actually do his demon descent yet again?
Well, Bolt Mollema isn't giving up. He's driving into this left-hand hairpin now, but it's Movistar with a gap only of about 4 or 5 seconds, and it looks like it's the German on the wheel of the Movistar rider. That's, of course, Tony Martin with Kwiatkowski on his wheel, and Wiening has gone straight past the breakaway Joe, turning an absolutely enormous gear. Obviously a very powerful rider. Wiening, of course, a previous winner of a stage of the Tour de France several years ago, now moved across the Eureka Green Edge, looking after Simon Yates yesterday. He's absolutely determined here, and he's opened up a bit of a gap and riding very, very strongly.
I think you'd be allowed to do this. They've already had a stage win, don't forget, Michael Matthews on stage 3. He did a great job yesterday for Simon Yates. Both the Yates brothers actually were up the road. And now Wiening, is he going to get his chance? He is quite rangy, isn't he? And you wouldn't think of him as a natural climber, and he's got a lot of chasing talent behind him, unfortunately.
I think it's going to be very difficult. He's turning an extremely big gear there, and of course the road does rear its head in a couple of kilometres to 9.6% grading, and he's as I say, there's only so far you can ride on a gear like that. You can attack on a gear and hold it for a few kilometres, but now he's knocked it down and starts pedalling a little bit more. But again, the pressure of Movistar is unrelenting, and I've no doubt he's going to be closed down very, very shortly.
Well, when will Movistar attack? I suggest it's going to be on the 9.5% section, which will come just 2 from the top. So, in fact, we're heading there right now. It will be when that says 10.2, we're in a real whole zone of hurt.
Definitely, but actually Wiening here, Wiening has opened up, he's eked out a few more seconds. He went straight past the breakaway.
Oh, look at this response, and it's Alberto Contador, I think, that's going to take this one up. Let's just have a look, see who is going to stay with him and go. In fact, it's not Contador who's gone for this.
It looks like the figure of Roman Kreuziger at 22nd overall at 2 minutes 34, riding very strongly, but lost a little bit of time yesterday. And it's Kreuziger, surprisingly, takes up the pace and really lines out this peloton now.
There we are. So maybe they're just proving that they've got something left in the tank. In fact, Contador and Valverde actually stuck together at the front of this group right now. Some of the engine room, John Gadre just backing out, having done his job. Looking at the head of the race right now, Peter Wiening still churning a big one. And he is going to get to the most difficult section in a moment. This is a sub-ramp of 4%, which goes on for about 900 meters. And then it suddenly more than doubles. And he will know all about that when he hits it. And he will be there in about 1 kilometer's time. And that's when I think he may well just grind to a halt. Let's see.
He'll certainly be welcoming this little bit of plateau at the moment before the road rears its head. But again, it looks like it is Kreuziger on the front, and he's only got a couple of seconds lead now, really lined out.
Tony Martin there for Kwiatkowski, doing a fantastic job of finding himself this deep into the climb. And there is Kwiatkowski, the Polish champion, with the red band across his chest. This is fantastic. 10.8 to go. Koenigo's a decent descender, we keep saying it.
He certainly is, and Koenigo, he's very, very well placed overall at 3rd place, in fact, at only 36 seconds. So
kan zien. En dan Kreuziger. Die gaat nog even het tempo omhoog gooien.
Contador heeft de tactiek van Valverde gisteren genomen. Hij zit nu in het wiel van Valverde om hem geen secondeprijs te geven.
Look deeper into this group. Look about 10, 15 riders down, and you'll see Valverde and Contador. There he is. He just drifts into view. So top and 10, I think you might say at the moment, with 10.5 to go. And here comes the difficult section for everybody. They're grinding into it. It says 5.5%. Ignore that. It's nearly twice that. And this is where you, if you're going to function beautifully, you have to do it here today to give yourself any kind of chance. Cyril Gauthier has found himself very high up the order now, the man in green. But Kwiatkowski looks very relaxed.
He does. Well, Kreuziger looking extremely strongly. He's just going to focus on riding for as long as he can and as hard as he can, and he's putting your little Cyril Gauthier, who's riding extremely well today from Europe car number 133 there in the green, in a world of hurt, as Tony Martin from Amiga Pharma Quickstep, already with a stage win under his belt, looking after his man, and that's Michał Kwiatkowski, sat there in white of the Polish national road race champion, looking extremely comfortable and turning a lovely little gear.
He is, and he's still got to take the difficult section there on that little sub ramp, that 4% I was telling you about. But as soon as they go over the top, and that will come at 8.2 to go, so they're nearly there. Oh, look at it, suddenly hit them hard. Yes, Kwiatkowski, what can he do today? Probably an awful lot. I'm surprised how much Tony Martin's doing, actually.
Well, Tony Martin is on superb form, and himself will be looking at another victory with the time trial tomorrow. He's got to be odds-on favourite for that. But the most interesting situation for me here is the fact that Alberto Contador, after that epic turn of speed from Roman Kreuziger, of course, Amstel Gold winner last year, is now isolated. So he has no teammates with him. So what are we going to see from the other general classification contenders?
Cadel Evans is here. If you just look, you will see him riding about 4th place on the main group here as they head for the top. 5th place, in fact, if you count them back right now. Damiano Cunego is also here. This might well be Cadel Evans teeing himself up beautifully for a lovely run at the time trial tomorrow. Former mountain biker, that's how he started, don't forget, Cadel Evans. So he won't mind the peaks tomorrow.
He certainly won't. Cadel Evans is in a very, very strong position, and it's looking like he's riding pretty comfortably. You can just see him just to the left there in the black and red strip of BMC with those fluorescent yellow shoes. And this is where the road does kick up a little bit. There's a few riders struggling at the back now. Good to see.
Oh, they're getting some respite, and look at this, suddenly anything but, it's absolutely kicked off. Contador chasing on to Alejandro Valverde, who is trying to distance him, and Contador saying, no chance, I've been here all day and I'm going nowhere than past you if I possibly can on this descent. This is going to be one cracker of a downhill, believe me, because the pair of them are extraordinarily fast in the turns.
Look at Alejandro Valverde there, accelerating on the drops as if he's actually doing a finishing sprint, and those last few meters have been extremely difficult for Contador to shut, but he's just about on the wheel now. Takes a bit of a glance, relaxes, takes a gulp of air, but what a superb attack there by Alejandro Valverde, wearing number 1, and it's now these two that are out the front.
So we have about 800 meters to go. It'll just be it will almost feel flat to them after what they've just done, and then all of a sudden they are kicking down and heading downhill. Here we go. The marker tells you that around this next couple of corners they will be at high speed. And believe me, it will be extraordinarily high. This is what we want, the two main contenders, mano a mano on the descent.
It does look like it's an Amiga Pharma Quick Stop jersey that's trying to get across. It looked like the figure of Wout Poels. It wasn't Kwiatkowski. They're nearly at the top here before this very rapid descent down towards the finish, but it's still Valverde on the front, shaking his head. Contador looks round, and it's Wout Poels, the stage winner yesterday from Amiga Pharma Quick Stop. A fantastic foil, of course, for Kwiatkowski, and himself up there overall at the 9th place at only 55 seconds.
Well, Poels knows he's in good company. There's Kwiatkowski and Tony Martin just leading him across the line. Tony Martin done an amazing job of climbing that. Got the 9% area was just dispatched beautifully, and they're within sight. But I think they're going to have a proper dig here. This is the moment that Alejandro Valverde went for it in the tree line, and nobody else could follow him except for Alberto Contador. The two principal riders from the Tour of the Basque Country, the 54th running of it, going head to head, and there they have been joined by yesterday's stage winner. As you can see, Wout Poels, the rangy figure, and these guys, they're looking at each other. No, you, after you, all the way down. They're after victory here.
They certainly are. Well, Wout Poels certainly will not give any of these two flying Spaniards a turn. He's got the interests of his team leader, Kwiatkowski, who's behind, so he'll be looking at an opportunity to move himself up the general classification and also look at the stage win, but certainly will not work in tandem with the other two Spaniards who are now taking this very technical descent. But it looks as if, trying to see who's chasing now, it looks like it's the young Frenchman, Thibaut Pinot.
And Cadel Evans is in the mix here as well. And if you look further down the order, you'll see that they are pulling away. Valverde with Contador and Poels are actually starting to put a decent gap in here. Now it's downhill all the way to the line, don't forget. We better talk about the finish.
Yes, it's not an overly technical finish, a relatively straight run in. There are no roundabouts. There's a couple. They go left, right, left, and a pretty straight kilometre, last kilometre. But that's certainly not the same for this descent. Very technical and twisting. They nearly had enough then.
Yeah, you can't. Contador, incidentally, just hexagoned the corner. Valverde took it smooth as silk, and I guess you know the Contador can descend very well indeed. But just look at the skills that Valverde is displaying here. Contador can't follow his lines.
Valverde is taking a few risks. The only opportunity now for Valverde to steal some time is on this descent, aside, of course, from the time trial tomorrow. So he is taking a few risks down here, and Contador is trying to hold his wheel, but Poles descending extremely adeptly as well, sprinting to try and get back onto the wheels of Contador, and of course an absolutely flying Alejandro Valverde.
Don't forget, different body weights as well offer up different scenarios within the turn, and so it's often, if you are a big rangy character such as Wout Poels is, it's impossible to follow their lines because it could actually prove dangerous from the smaller men.
It is, as we saw on the penultimate climb, where Bobby Jungels descended far quicker than his breakaway compatriots. Yes, Valverde, a slightly smaller rider, riding a 52-centimetre frame, only 61 kilograms in weight, Valverde, but quite punchy with a low centre of gravity, so very at home on this sort of technical descent. And a wonderful to see Contador give him a turn. He is. Wout Poels disposes of a bottle and sits comfortably in third place, just a passenger for the time being.
He's doing a great job, Wout Poels, of actually staying with this pairing, because they mean business today. I guess it's something in the bank as well for those who might pose a danger when it comes to the individual time trial. So will it be between these two? You can absolutely guarantee that, but who's going to win today? We are not sure at all. BMC and Cadel Evans has done a fantastic job. It was great to see as well Philippe Gilbert at least giving it a go today. I think he might well have got back into the party here with 5.3 to go.
There's definitely another BMC jersey with Cadel Evans. I have a feeling it is Sammy Sanchez, a slightly slimmer, lesser bulkier figure of Gilbert, so it looks like a BMC are trying to bring these leaders back, but at the moment the lead is holding steady.
Oh, and he goes on the attack as well. He's not just taking over the lead and the duty of heading downhill here. He's actually, every time he comes to the front, he is putting distance into Contador. Contador trying to respond and stay with him. This is fantastic. They have 10 seconds on the peloton, but it's all the way downhill to the line, don't forget. It does flatten out slightly at the very last, and we're talking from the Flamme Rouge. I think that's the only point where it actually gets completely pan flat. So, can they possibly make it all the way? This
is a very, very twisting descent. They have 10 seconds over the chasing group, which is about 20 riders strong. But look at the pressure that's being put, that poor old Wout Poels is being put under by a flying Alejandro Valverde. I've noticed at a couple of points on this road, bear in mind that there's a lot of shade, there are some slightly damp patches, and that's what makes descending at this sort of speed extremely frightening. You come around a blind corner to find in your line a damp patch of road. It does look as if BMC have closed that gap down slightly.
Well, that was a monster effort as well by BMC driving onto this. If they can tee up Cadel Evans to do a decent time trial tomorrow, and we know he will go reasonably quickly, especially as it's got a couple of peaks within it. But just look at Valverde. He means business right here, right now. He nicked a couple of seconds off Contador yesterday. I think it'd be a very tall order the way Contador is holding on. He's a pretty good descender himself, as we've already mentioned, but Valverde is just outstanding.
This is like watching some MotoGP. It's absolutely riveting stuff. The motorbike, as well as Wout Poels, is doing a superb run himself, having difficulty staying with the white jerseyed Alejandro Valverde, who's pressing and taking some risks on these corners. But this is what racing is all about. Absolutely exciting. It's not just about the climbs and the flatlands. It's about exploiting every opportunity you can, as they head under the 3 kilometers to go banner.
It is. That banner in the right place as well, according to the graphics, and Contador looks over his shoulder and just wonders whether there's going to be company. Wouldn't be surprised. Takes an inside line and just denies Valverde a swift turn into it. 2.9 to go, and down there is our finish line. That beckons.
Definitely, but I think Valverde, as well as trying to put Contador under pressure, he'll be thinking about guys like Kwiatkowski, who's an exceptional time trialist. So he knows it's not just about Contador, it's about his rivals behind. Obviously, we've got Sammy Sanchez, and of course Cadel Evans at only 36 seconds, and on his day a remarkable time trialist. So he's thinking about trying to put as much time as he can between these three and the chasing group, and they're not far behind.
Yeah, it might well be that that Contador just accepts that they're going to have to work together today to stultify or neutralise the threat from Cadel Evans. And of course, Michael Kwiatkowski, I think I did him a disservice earlier on, but you're right. He could go extremely well tomorrow, and we know about his climbing abilities. It's just the occasions when he just runs out of steam. Let's hope he doesn't tomorrow. BMC are not running out of steam, and they're going to close this gap.
They certainly are. They did say 11 seconds. It's certainly not that much now as we head under the banner with 2 kilometres to go. Definitely the impetus has gone out of the leading trio now. Wout Poels isn't doing a tap, and it's yeah, it looks like Sammy Sanchez and Cadel Evans who brought this group back, and TJ Van Garderen looks as if he is there too.
There we are. They'll say all together, although it's extraordinarily diminished, as you can see. So recheck everything, reset everything with 1,600 meters to go. Who's here and who's going to deliver? Ben Swift is in the mix by the looks of things and finds himself in a great place. Oh my goodness. Call this one for
this is
crying
great
out
stuff.
Loud. How much have they got left in the legs? That's the point.
It's a very interesting mix in this particular group here, and we've seen an attack. It looks like it's Peter Weening again who's gone on the attack, already an attacker earlier on, and it's all happening on this run in here.
It is. Kwiatkowski's still here. Damiano Cunego as well. I think that's Ben Swift in P5 as we speak. Now, if it is, and he's got something left in his legs, right now he's just trying to get some feeling back, for goodness sake, because he is the choice. Had he not had all that climbing to do, we'll see. 1,100 meters to go. Here is the Flamme Rouge, and they just drift over to that right-hand side of the road. They're all trying to sort themselves out and just make sure that they actually stay together. And suddenly Contador just makes certain that he's not that far away. He doesn't want any gaps like were thrown up yesterday. It could come down to split seconds at the very death, this.
Definitely, it's Tony Martin who brought back the attack there with Michal Kwiatkowski on his wheel. Kwiatkowski been sprinting extremely well, and Tony Martin lighting up the tarmac with a turn of speed that is deterring any attackers whatsoever.
You just can't peel off. Ben Swift is actually staying with Kwiatkowski. I think it's going to be between those two when we get to the line. Tony Martin doing a fantastic job. Absolutely superb. And it is Swift that's there. What a performance that was by him.
Remarkable ride. Of course, you can't forget third place of Milan San Remo on tremendous form. Who's it going to be today?
Well, it surely has to be Ben Swift in this kind of company. 250 minutes to go. Ben Swift with the blue stripe on his helmet, and he comes up to the side of Kwiatkowski. They take the final line, and Ben Swift hits the front. Anybody going to deny him? Valverde's here as well. This is absolutely remarkable. Swifty has lived up to his name. What a performance that was.
I've taken my breath. What an absolutely superb ride by Ben Swift to stay in the kind of company he stayed with there. Some of the best climbers in the world. Swifty can climb well. I certainly didn't expect him to be there, but he was put under a lot of pressure, but delivered, had no teammates at all with him, and came round Kwiatkowski perfectly to take it by good length. What an absolutely superb victory for young Ben Swift from Team Sky.
Full of admiration for him. That was superb. I did see a Sky rider on the descents, and then it just drifted out, and then I corrected myself. I thought, oh, maybe I'm wrong. It was a movie star. It was Ben Swift. After all, he mugged us all.
He certainly did. I mean, that was some very, very illustrious company. But of course, when you look back to a couple of weeks ago and finishing third in one of the hardest classics in the world, it just says that he's on tremendous form. Had a second place earlier in the race, but to climb in such exalted company in such a difficult race is something special. I certainly didn't expect it, but how well deserved was that wonderful, wonderful victory. Team Sky are going to be absolutely enwrapped at that win.
I just love it. You know, say what you like about cycling. One thing which is so wonderful about it